All right, guys, thank you and welcome to a special emergency edition of Tinfoil Hat. I decided, when Astroworld happened, I just couldn't because we booked the guests out so long in advance. It's hard for me to just do a show. So I'm like, okay, the opportunity came and it went. But I feel like the Ghislaine Maxwell interview trial is like super important, need to be discussed, and everyone keeps asking for it. So I felt like this is one of those events where I kind of got to do it on the fly and make it happen and give you a bonus episode this week. So here we are, and I'm very honored to have this guy on. He is he's boots on the ground outside of the trial. He might be in the trial. I think he might be actually made it in. We're going to find all that out. He's an author. He's an independent investigator. Please welcome Eddie Ants. How are you, brother?
Thank you, Sam Tripoli. I really appreciate you having me on. You know, I've been aware of your work for quite some time now. Yeah, I really appreciate it, sir.
Well, you're doing the Lord's work, and I appreciate you coming, spending a little time with me here. And sorry we started a little late, but I'm honored that you chill with me. For those that aren't quite familiar with you and your work, can you tell the listeners, the swarm, a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Sam. I appreciate that. I started out doing author interviews and podcasts about 2 years ago now, a little over 2 years ago. And I've been on quite a few different channels, although I've been pretty heavily censored, especially on YouTube. And that kind of morphed my interviews kind of morphed into I saw it as a huge bull market for geopolitical coverage, especially in the wake of 2020 and the Corona panic. Obviously, that was a huge influx. You had pretty much the whole world, it seemed, on the internet. Locked up in our houses there in March. And so that morphed into kind of me becoming a journalist, more so than just an interviewer. And as a result of my interviews and such, I put it into a book, Public Intelligence: The Rise of Synergistic Truth, which I kind of see as a framework for truth and a lens to view this new media sphere we're in, where guys like yourself and me and other people are really giving the mainstream a big run for their money, which is why I think we're seeing so much of this censorship. But I've worked with I think people that your audience probably would know. I've been on Kirsten W's show, Ann Vandersteel I've interviewed. I worked with George Webb for quite a while earlier this year and going back last year, and Neighborhood News over there. And I've had a lot of great interviews. I think I just haven't had the platform really. This censorship really has knocked me back on that. So I did a book, interviews, and then the interviews kind of morphed into giving me confidence to do my own independent broadcasts. Kind of standing on my own 2 feet. And I recently have been getting into writing shorter pieces, which I'm not quite as comfortable with, to be honest, as writing my book, believe it or not. But I think my first kind of breakthrough, quote unquote, was the first week of this year. Actually, I was doing pretty extensive coverage on the election in Atlanta and Fulton County, going back to last year. And I was actually the one who broke the Harrison Deal story, where you had this young aide to Kelly Loeffler who was dating the daughter of Governor Kemp, and he died in a pretty weird car crash, they're calling it.
Crazy.
Yeah, you saw that. And it was kind of funny because I posted the video, and in 2 days it got like 29,000 views. And then like a day or two later, that channel got terminated. That was on the Neighborhood News channel at the time. And George put a video out actually about ballot trafficking over the Peace Bridge with Pascal Ferrier. I think she was French or Canadian, from Quebec maybe. And I did a follow-up there in Buffalo. Got some water thrown at me by some BLM people or Antifa people up there. So that was fun. But the breakthrough came because I did this armed ballot trafficking story in Atlanta that got picked up by the Gateway pundit, because Patrick Byrne tweeted it out, and he lost his Twitter shortly after that. I think it was the same week, and then my YouTube channel as well. It all happened this first week of of 2021, and then the 6th obviously happened as well, and so it was really a lot of crazy stuff going on there. So yeah, I was doing pretty extensive coverage of the Atlantis story, and followed up on the Harrison Deal story with the death of William O'Sullivan, who was the GBI agent investigating that, and he died at home. They still haven't released a cause of death or autopsy or anything like that. And so that kind of shot me up for a bit, but the rest of this year, Sam, I really haven't seen a whole lot of growth at all because of this censorship, I think.
Oh yeah, dude.
Yeah. And
I totally get what you're going through.
mhm.
And because I'm dealing with it right now. I just got shut down on Instagram for my second time. I was playing nice. I wasn't doing too much about the vaccines and all that. I like, okay, that's going to piss them off. I'm not going to do that. But I started dropping, dank memes about Ghislaine Maxwell. And I was sharing some stories that were sent to me by other people. I wasn't posting my own. I was just posting other people's stuff that was sent to me. And I woke up yesterday. I posted a story just about a show I was doing in Tampa. And I went to eat. When I came back, my Instagram went through some phases where it stopped and goes, you're disabled for 30 days. And that lasted for maybe a millisecond. And then it just got wiped off. And that is my second Instagram this year that's been taken down. One of 80,000, the other one almost 70,000.
Wow.
And they're all gone. But I'd been shadow banned down to even on my to 100 likes. When I was getting 500, 5,000, 6,000 likes on posts, I was down to 100. Mm-hmm. And even on my birthday post, just to see how shadow banned I was, I put out a birthday post, and like your birthday post, like everybody super duper likes you. If you're following you hit, hey, happy birthday, or like. I only got 900. And I'm like, okay, that just proves that I've been shadow banned right there. And what got really interesting for me is like, I'm on my third Twitter now. I've had all these Twitters taken down.
Oh, wow.
And now I'm on my third one. And I always know if I get, and this is kind of about when you talk about you got 27,000 views. I know if I get to 1,000 likes on Twitter, my days are numbered. If 1,000 people like my tweet, I probably believe I'm resonating with way more than that. That's just what they're letting me know I have. Mm-hmm. They get rid of me. I've reached too many people, and they do it on Instagram too. I've caught them on Instagram. They were like, you're getting more, this post is getting more likes than any of the other ones. And it's like, it's doing better than 90% of your posts. And I would have like 700 likes when just a week before I was getting posts that had like $5,000 likes. And it just like, you catch them in this weird thing. So I understand what you're going through. It is very hard. It is very hard to get growth going. Here's my whole thing. As a man who does stand-up comedy, and I kind of on the politically incorrect, dirty adult comedy, the reason I bring this up is because for a very long time, there was no mechanism. There's nothing set for people like me to make money. If the industry didn't like you, you were done, and you were frozen out, and you had to go get a different job. But due to a bunch of people like Joe Rogan, Doug Stanhope, David Tell, Bill Burr, Legion of Skanks, and all these really wonderful, dark and dirty comedians who have also created podcasts, there has now been a structure put in place so that people like us can now make money. And the reason I bring that up is because I believe that's going to happen with alternative, what I'm going to call journalism. What's on CNN is alternative journalism. What you're doing is real journalism, and real journalism
thank you, Sam.
will be able to find a place to succeed and make reach. And also, which I think shouldn't be an issue, is to make a good living off your hard work. And I think that's very important that people are rewarded for their hard work. And in my humble opinion, that structure is happening. Places like we just talked about Band TV, Rockfin, BitChute, Odyssey, all these places are establishing wonderful places where all the outlaws from YouTube and journalism can go, because the ones that built up all the systems. You know, it's like I say this all the time, like outlaws are always the ones who create an industry, and the bean counters come and they end up destroying it. You know, you look at it like MMA is a great example of it.
Oh,
Stand-up
sure, sure.
comedy is a great example of it. Acting, movie, all like, you know, misfits and outlaws. And then when it starts to become profitable, the bean counters come in and they
Yeah.
change the game.
Crypto
Because
too. I think you could apply that to now.
for sure. So
Yeah.
and it's gonna happen. It's just an interesting. But so my point being is that you are on the right path. Great things are happening, and you know your boots on the ground. You're right there, ground zero of all this stuff going on. And in my heart of hearts, I believe that the real ones, authenticity, will be the currency of the future, and you will be rich in authenticity, brother. That's my belief. So the future is bright. You just got to kind of go through it to get to it. But back to
Thank
what
you,
we were
Sam.
talking.
Thank
No,
you.
no problem, man. And I get it, man, because you know I'm much older than you, and I was kind of in this place where I was doing a certain type of comedy, and it wasn't loved at all by the industry. But now, if you turn
Sure.
around and you look around, it's all everybody's doing. And I was doing it since, you know, I started comedy in 1994, you know, and that's when I
Okay.
started. And
I think you're older than I thought you were.
yeah, I mean, like a lot of people say that's nice. I'm fat though. My doctor told me I was fat. I go, Tom, he goes, you're fat. I go, what? He goes, you're fat. I'm like, so then I would tell people that, and nobody corrected him. When I would tell like my friends, I'm like, yeah, my doctor said I'm fat, and nobody went, oh, you're not fat. They're like, you know, you're kind of fat. So my point being, thank you for that compliment. But yeah, so I started early doing this kind of raw comedy. Now that's what a lot of people want, even though you're being told that political correctness. Enough about me. The point about you is that you're boots on the ground. You're at the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. The first question I have to ask you is she on trial? Like the whole thing was, she's not. This isn't real. This is all pageantry. It's all there to steal our loosh. It's a psyop. I saw your video. You explained what you've seen and what and your feelings on. So I'm gonna give you the floor. Is Ghislaine Maxwell on trial right now?
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I think that's a great question, and that was one of my concerns too. You know, and you know, it's one of those binary issues people have with the whole conspiracy theory trope, which you know that gets thrown around. I guess it was a CIA-born term to discredit the JFK assassination, if I remember correctly. But I had that concern too, Sam, and I did see her face yesterday, and I was saying earlier, put a bit of a feather in my cap. I'm actually quite good with faces, with memory of faces, and she took it off, and I went up to the screen right away because they put you in these overflow courtrooms, and the only people who can get in are like basically the big ones. And I heard that CNN is actually paying people to go at like 3 a.m. in the morning to wait and stand in line so they can physically get into the courtroom. But I saw her take her mask off to get a sip of water, and I rushed up right away. And I looked really closely, and I was like, yeah, that's her. You know, that looks like her. And the other thing too is her sister's here. So why would her sister be here if it wasn't her? And her friend Leah Safian, who's an attorney from California. But yeah, that was my concern as well. And it was a debate. You know, even amongst the our media, our independent media, you know, it was kind of split. Like people were like unsure which way or another. But yeah, as far as I can tell, that was Ghislaine Maxwell, and she is on trial.
And you know, the whole thing is like, is this going to be a real trial? Before we get into the trial itself, what is the atmosphere around this trial there? Is it insanity? Are there people everywhere? Is it as busy as you thought would be? Or is it more busy? Is it more chaotic?
Sure. Yeah. Monday definitely was the busiest day so far, which is the first day of the trial. You had protesters outside with signs. Somebody set up a tent, and they were like they're like literally smoking weed in a tent, like in front of the Southern District of New York courthouse. And, you know, huge line of reporters going back. But it's kind of petered out a little bit as the week has gone on, which has been disappointing. And I've talked to people even on Monday, and they thought it was going to be an even larger turnout. But regardless, there's Sky Australia's here, Sky Britain, BBC. I was sitting next to some lady from Netflix today in the courtroom. So there's still mainstream coverage here, and lots of independent people too. I met a lady who does her own podcast. So those are the people I love talking to, because there's this kind of edge of superiority I've noticed that some of the mainstreamers have when you talk to them. They just seem a lot less willing or desirous to converse with people. But I find the independent folks to be a lot more talkative and conversational. So that's been actually a really enjoyable aspect of this, Sam, is talking to other people, meeting and kind of doing that networking and sharing notes and stuff. But I hope it doesn't continue to trend to less and less people paying attention. I mean, it would make it easier to get in the courthouse, but I'm going to stay here as long as I can. My only thing is trying to get lodging. So fortunately, I have someone putting me up right now, which has been really fantastic. But I'm not from New York, so New York City is, for those that don't know, it's really expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
The dollar menu at McDonald's is like the $3 menu.
So if anyone's listening, they're in New York and you got a spare room you want to put Eddie on there, that'd be great. It would help out.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee. Listen, I do stand-up comedy all the time. The Swarm show up. The bouncers are used to hecklers, and I always say, oh, they're just cuddlers. They're not hecklers. They're the nicest people. I don't worry about Swarm stealing my merch or anything. So the point being is that they tend to be really good people. So if people do hit you up, as far as I know, they're good people, but you gotta.
Oh yeah, I would expect them to be, Sam. Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything less. And it's something, I can help out too with chores around the house too. That's something I always offer up in case people want to house me, or not. We'll figure it out. But I've noticed with this work that I'm doing, I really have to play things by ear a lot. People will tell me, oh, what are you going to do in next month or 2 weeks from now? And every time I try to tell them, I'm always wrong. So just kind of playing it by ear. But yeah, I'm trying to stick this thing out all the way through, because the demand for the coverage is just so great. There's such a hunger for people to get good coverage of this. And
it is for sure. So, and you'll be, I'm gonna put all your links in here. So if people have any suggestions about helping out, you can find the links there in the description. Click it and see if you can help Eddie out. Before we get into the trial itself, what is the feeling of the people around you? Is it, oh my God, this is happening. Oh, she's guilty. She's innocent. You're talking to some, even though Netflix is new, you're talking to some legacy media people. Is there like two kinds of people there? The one who thinks she's innocent and the ones who think she's guilty? Or what's the feeling on the ground?
Yeah, good question. I'm still feeling it out because, for example, today in the room I was in, there was probably 20 or so people in there listening and taking notes and stuff, whether it was, citizen observers, or there was a college student there for an assignment. I was like, wow, that's an amazing assignment for your first trial to attend. And this is actually my first trial I've ever covered as well. But it does seem to be a bit of a mixed bag, Sam, which I was surprised at. There's obviously some people that lean a little bit more conspiracy wise, and some people I've noticed a bit more that, like, there's this guy from the New York Times who he's seemed like very much not into conspiracies whatsoever. But I'm still kind of feeling it out, and even myself, I'm not really sure how this is going to go, Sam. I don't know if she's going to be acquitted or if she's going to be convicted. It's still hard to tell. But of the people I've asked, many of them contend that, for example, the pilot was basically captured or still loyal to Epstein and Maxwell based on his testimony. But the interest is there for sure. People walking by are like, what's going on here? Because they notice the hubbub. Even today, I noticed, people like, hey, what's going on with this trial? And most that, ask, you tell them it's the Maxwell trial. They're like, oh, okay. And they recognize that. which was part of the issue too with finding jurors who didn't know much about this situation at all. So I was thinking, man, they must have looked under a rock for
where are
these
they
people.
finding these people?
Yeah, right.
Where are they? I
right.
mean, Epstein was such a big moment. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. So, I'm just trying to take it A to Z on this. So, a lot of people, there's a lot of feeling on the outside that this thing is already done. Like it's so stacked in her favor. There's going to be very little chance of her getting convicted of anything. I personally don't think that's the thing. I'm not saying that it isn't in the cards aren't stacked in her favor. I think she gets something. I don't think it's jail time, and maybe that's a little too negative. I don't know, but I feel like she's gonna get something.
Sure.
She's gonna get something, because I feel like it wouldn't even get to this moment if it was just gonna be like you're free and she could walk free amongst everything. So, I just want to kind of get your feel. So we have a judge. It's all come out. She's part of a secret society from Yale, which is the female, I guess, version of Skull and Crossbones. She's heavily involved in the DNC. John Kerry, Joe Biden has given her, she's been appointed to a higher post, either after trial or part of the trial. Comey's daughter is very much involved, but based on some of what I've seen up from your account, and what is the name of your Twitter account so people can find it?
Sure. It's a one Addy Ads, and one is spelled out. So it's ONEADDYADDS. I appreciate that. People want to give me a follow there. That's the best spot to get the real-time updates. Because what I'm doing is, the footage I grabbed this morning just got picked up by Storyful. So that was fantastic. But I'll go and get the antagonist, shall we say, from some people's point of view. The defensive lawyers come in, and then sometimes you'll see, like for example, Teresa Helm walked in today with her lawyers, Miss McCauley, and then I'll go around 9 o'clock or so up into the courthouse, because the line there is you got to go through security, and it's pretty taxing and annoying to wait in line for that. So I try to stay productive and then wait until the line's really kind of almost as low as it can be right before the trial starts. But I actually forgot what your question was.
The question was, Alan, all these figures that seem to be there to ensure Ghislaine Maxwell doesn't get the book thrown at her, including, like, is Alan Dershowitz on the defense team?
He is not. No, he is not. Yeah.
Okay. So
I can tell you who's on it if you'd like.
Yeah, do go and then discuss Comey's daughter, because I have my whole thing about her. I don't think she's necessarily all bad or all good. I think she's a little bit of everything.
Sure. Yeah, and I'll mention Comey here too. So the presiding judge is Allison Nathan, appointed to the federal bench by Obama in 2011, and notably permitted prosecutors to use the word victim when discussing Maxwell's accusers. For example, victim Jane or witness Jane has been cross-examined this week, and allowing accusers to testify pseudonymously. And as you mentioned, allegedly a member of the secret society Quill and Dagger, kind of the women's equivalent to the Skull and Bones Society. And this psychologist or memory expert, Elizabeth Loftus, is going to testify on behalf of the defense for Maxwell. And she is an expert in kind of false memories of sexual abuse. She's testified in defense of,
dude.
I mean, you would never
these
guess
are
that
Hail
that would
Mary
be a drop.
passes defense, right? Like, they seem to be Hail Mary passes that in any other situation it wouldn't, there's no chance. But here based on what you're telling me, it seems like the judge, which everyone's assured of, is not going to play ball, is going to play ball with the defense, has allowed things that seem to be in the prosecution's favor, right? Like referring to the witnesses as victims. Am I wrong on that?
I think you're right. I think that does that was a boon, I think, for the prosecution and for the government. And it does seem like you mentioned the promotion. It does seem they're kind of dangling a promotion in front of Nathan, depending on the result, maybe, and what would be that result that they're looking for, to the point where it's like, okay, now you get the promotion because this trial went the way we wanted it to go. And that's I think it's a Second Circuit Court, I want to say, right below the Supreme Court. So she would be kind of on the fast track to maybe being on the Supreme Court one day. So it's quite a promotion to dangle, and really, really weird timing, because this is the biggest case of her career, I'm sure. And this psychology expert or false memory expert, her CV is very interesting. She has testified in defense of Harvey Weinstein, Scooter Libby, Ollie North, Ted Bundy, the police officers who beat up Rodney King, the Robert Durst murder trial she was a part of, and then the McMartin preschool child sex abuse
basically
case.
The Legion of Doom, right? She's basically has been a character witness for the Legion of Doom. Was she there for Lex Luthor's trial? Right? I mean, it just seems, but I wonder, is that something, and this might not be your expertise, this is just us kind of talking.
Of course.
Is that something that the prosecution can bring up? It's like, you've also like been witnesses for literally the worst people out there.
Right. Yeah, as far as I know, again, this is my first trial, but you have to take everything separately. So anything that, she's done in the past technically shouldn't be taken into account by the jury. So that's or even the trial itself, as far as I know. But again, I'm not a lawyer. So that's my contention of the situation. And speaking of that, there's kind of it made me think of Lisa Bloom, who is an attorney for, I think, 8 victims of the Epstein network. And interestingly enough, she actually gave counsel to Harvey Weinstein in 2016. So in that sense, you kind of see Lisa Bloom being on both sides of the fence there. So I found that interesting, but I agree, Sam. It's hard not to take that into account, especially given that ridiculous list of names that she has attempted to help, and obviously in most of those cases failed to do so, because I'm pretty sure all of them got convicted.
So what is your thoughts of Comey's daughter? Because she's involved with the Epstein case. She allowed the footage of the murder night, night.
Your stuff, yeah.
Yeah, to disappear. She is connected to Comey. Comey's got a lot of darkness involved in his past. A lot of stuff going on with that, with the just so much involved. I mean, I don't know how deep in the conspiracies you get. Why did Comey reopen the investigation into Hillary Clinton? Did the NYPD, who saw stuff on Anthony Weiner's laptop that was so dark that they threatened to go to WikiLeaks with it, did they force his hand at the last minute to reopen the case, which it was only like 2 or 3 weeks before the election, which seemed a lot of people to believe, which also could be theater, that it helped torpedo her election. What are your thoughts on Comey's daughter?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know as much about her as I do some of the other characters and players in here, but you would think that her being a part of the 2016 failed prosecution of Epstein would be a conflict of interest, especially given the footage that was somehow lost. And as you mentioned, she was one of 2 attorneys who explained how this footage just disappeared from the face of the earth. But as you mentioned, she is the daughter of former FBI Director Comey, who was the former head U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, which she might actually have that same position one day, as she's an assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District since 2014. and that's another thing. You would think that, you know, maybe it would have been a better idea for the government to choose a different excuse me, a different prosecutor. And the other one who was involved in that explanation of how the footage was gone was this Jason Swergold. But again, that was from the 2016 case. But Comey, I want to look into her more. My you know, going into this trial, I didn't realize how all-consuming it's been. I've had to put pretty much everything else on the back burner as far as interviews and my other projects that I've been doing. But it's been 100% worth it, no doubt. But I can go through some of these other players if you'd
please
like.
do.
We got Bobby Sternheim, who is for the defense. She holds top secret SCI clearance, has a history of defending organized crime criminals, public officials accused of corruption. She's a Criminal Justice Act rep for SDNY and former president of the New York Women's Bar Association in 92 and 93. So she has definitely a history of helping to defend, bad guys, shall we say. And then we got for the prosecution, Allison Moe, who's a member of the Southern District of New York's Public Corruption Unit. And she was actually one of the prosecutors who pursued fraud charges against Steve Bannon in 2016, who obviously got pardoned by Trump later on. And then Andrew Rohrbach, who looks to me to be the youngest of the prosecution. And that's something I wanted to point out as well, is there's quite an age and experience difference between the defense and the prosecutors. And, if there's anyone who has as deep of pockets as you can go in terms of affording lawyers, it's Ghislaine Maxwell. So she has some of the best in terms of this type of trial going to bat for her. And it did seem at times that the prosecution was a little bit kind of taken aback or maybe even intimidated a bit, but it's something that I think I want to look more into as this trial develops, because they were pretty harsh in cross-examining Jane, who is our first victim witness this week. She was actually kind of sobbing at the end of the questioning the other day. And their basic two main tactics are questioning the memory of the victims, and then the other thing is kind of the gold digger angle, that they're only doing this for money. So that's why they have Loftus, the psychologist, coming in to kind of help with that memory strategy.
So that's another thing I wanted to get into. I really felt like, based on the small bit of evidence that, the small bit of testimony that I've been able to get from Twitter accounts like yourself, I felt like the prosecution was really maybe going for it. If you think, I know they can, if let's say they're there just to throw the fight, they can't just go in there and be like, well, shucks, what am I gonna add? They have to put on a bit of theater for it. But I felt like the tone seemed to be like this Ghislaine Maxwell is shady as shit, and she was involved in human sex trafficking. Did you get that sense at all? Like they're doing their job?
Sure. That's a good question. I'm still unclear on their strategy, to be honest, Sam. It seems a little bit disjointed to me. The defense, I think, has a much bigger uphill battle as far as defending Ghislaine Maxwell. But again, the amount of time that has passed since these crimes definitely does not help the prosecution. But again, that's something I want to analyze further, because it does seem like I've talked to other people too, and they don't seem to understand, like myself, what exactly the prosecution's angles seem to be as far as the long-term 6-week plan they may have.
So everybody's trying to listen in to what is being asked and what is being said. There's been a really big push to include Donald Trump on these things, which
definitely, yeah.
I don't, it's so interesting, because like the left seems to be like, hey, look, they're saying Trump. Like I tweeted this a while ago. Like the left will be like, Pizzagate's not real, but Trump's 100% a part of it. If you put Trump on there as a way to be like, oh, Trump is there doing shady shit, that to me implies Ghislaine Maxwell even more. That you're implying that Trump was there doing shady shit. That implies that Ghislaine Maxwell was, in fact, in my humble opinion, it means like more shady shit was going down. Yeah. I think it's an interesting play. Did you notice that at all? And what was the feeling if you did notice that or did notice that?
It was, yeah, no, I did. It was confusing a bit because it was actually the defense who brought up those big names first, not the prosecution. Bringing up, names like Trump and Clinton, Kevin Spacey was mentioned. RFK Jr. I think was asked about, although the pilot never saw RFK Jr., which I was happy about because I actually I like him.
We all love RFK Jr., right? You're like, when I saw Joan Rivers was on that list of people been there, I'm like, come on, Joan Rivers too.
Yeah, and it was ironic as I walked, right outside one of the overflow courtrooms I was in. It was a picture of John Roberts, and of course, John Roberts was one of the names that was on the flight log for the Lolita Express, which actually Lynn Wood tweeted about earlier this year, as you probably remember, before Lynn Wood's Twitter account got terminated.
For sure. So. This is the interesting thing. So the defense is trying to say the Clintons were there, but Trump was there too. I don't know how that helps their defense. That's just saying the people who thought people were the scumbags that people thought were scumbags were there doing scumbag stuff. And you're 100. You're literally saying, to me, she's saying there is a Lolita Express. Like that seems to be, but again, I'm not in there and getting the vibe. Is that a sense in the room?
It seems like the play was that if we bring up these names first, you will see that our client, Miss Maxwell, is in the company of well-respected public figures and officials and such. And therefore, that discredits the allegations against her. That seems to be the play. But again, it was a little bit confusing why they would bring that up, especially given the kind of court of public opinion's interest in the big names that were on the flight logs.
And I don't know who would go. I think very few people would be like Trump and the Clintons are distinguished guests, right? I mean, they seem to have, and the Clintons more than Trump. Trump has at least one side of the political spectrum that seems to really like him, even though they seem to be waking up more and more, kind of like in a more rapid pace, compared to how long it took for people to understand how bad the Clintons were. Like people are starting to see in real time, Fauci, warp drive, basically making it illegal on college campuses to talk about BDS, and I think people are waking up to that. Boycott, divest, sanction of Israel, that group, and the reason that he made it illegal to hold those protests on campuses. And the whole reason that is because the colleges, when after they pay off all their bills, they have money left over. Where's that money go to? Well, a trust, the board of trustees has a trust, and that trust invests in hedge funds, and those hedge funds tend to be the military industrial complex, and a lot of them do business with Israel. So if you have these colleges saying they won't do business with Israel, that affects the bottom line. That is ultimately why college athletes can make money off their likenesses and not have to be paid by the college. And that's all coming about Trump and all these rhinos, Republicans in name only, is all starting to come out right now. But I just find that to be a really bad ploy to associate with people who are associated with, very dark sexual past, in particular the Clintons. I mean, I don't know that brand seems to be so completely bad. And you bring up the flight logs. What are your thoughts on these flight logs? We're seeing more and more flight logs come out. I've seen the flight logs on themselves. It seems to be initials, and then people are associating names of those initials. What are your thoughts on these flight logs?
Yeah, the flight logs were, a huge, I think, piece in really drawing in the public's attention into this because of those names. Not to mention the pictures. You saw the picture, I'm sure, of it was like Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker and Bill Clinton all went on a trip to Africa. I believe that was with actually Virginia Roberts. And yeah, there's not a whole lot of verification as far as the Roberts name, but a lot of that was redacted, but it brings up like Dershowitz. He said something like, I kept my underwear on during the massage, and he only travels with his wife. But then on the flight logs, you see that there's a lady named Tatiana that he's traveling with, and his wife's name is definitely not Tatiana, so Dershowitz is he's definitely an interesting character in this situation. I was surprised to see him show up on the Netflix documentary defending himself. I was like, it might have been a better move not to even do that, but he seems to be wanting to go down with the ship no matter
Ego is not your amigo, brother.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good saying. I like that.
And we see names on there, and you just don't know what are real names, what is not real names. Some idiot fucking took this one Twitter account that listed all the big names on there and photoshopped my co-host and my name onto it. And then some people are like, Triple A's on the flight logs. I go, Xavier Guerrero, XG, isn't even a real name. It's a name I gave him. Why would he sign in back in? Like, he's only 28 years old. He wouldn't even, if he's on that flight, he's getting molested. He's not a molester, right? He's so young. It's just ridiculous. So I don't know what are real and what's not real.
Yeah, and I want to help dispel a little bit of the clouded kind of myths around this trial, because there was a case going around. It was Latham versus I think it was the 1954 trust, something like that.
Yes,
but it had a list of all
yes.
these names like Jay-Z and Lil Wayne and Beyonce. And people think that is part of this case, but it's not related at all. It's a different judge, different case. And it was actually thrown out as being frivolous and without merit by the judge. So that only clouded the understanding of this trial, as well as the fact that Tim Kennedy, and his name is Adam, I can't remember his name. He's got a big Twitter account, Adam something, but
Adam Curry?
I can't remember. I can't remember his last name, but I can get that to you. But basically, both of these guys were tweeting that the media was barred from the courtroom, which wasn't true at all. It almost seemed like, but potentially, the idea would be someone would put that notion out there so that media would not show up, because they would think, oh well, they're not going to allow me into the courtroom anyway. So that I think muddied the situation a bit too. And that's about this Epstein thing is there is a lot of I think misinformation and some purposeful disinformation as well. But distinguishing between the two is pretty difficult. But that's why I'm here. I'm trying to figure out what's actually going on. And it's interesting because a lot of these, I don't know what percentage, but they don't know too much about this case. Like the first day, Maxwell's sister, Isabella, she walked right past me and nobody recognized her except me and one other guy. I'm like, yo, this is your job, people, and then they couldn't even recognize her. But speaking of that, you mentioned Israel. I got her again this morning, walking right past me. And I was asking her about the Mossad. I asked her, what did your father tell your father tell you about working for the Mossad? And I said, are you and Ghislaine, are you and your sister agents in the Mossad? And
you live in dangerous, bro.
Yeah, no response from them. But the first day, her friend Leah Safian basically just said, no comment. You got to read the rule book. And she cited some New York, Southern District rule where she doesn't have to make a comment. But I wanted to get my lick in there a little bit. So
no, I like that, bro, because that's very important. And I mean, like, some stuff is the psyops that these people play are so advanced, that you could see her sister there. But I don't think you'd see all these players there if this wasn't a real trial. And
Yeah.
the fact that you saw in flesh and blood her sister there lets me know something's going on. Why do you think we haven't seen a mugshot? Why is everything sketch? Why can't we get an actual picture of her there in court?
That's a great question. And to be honest, I can't answer it, but I can speculate. And my speculation would be it's only to create more confusion and more distrust. It really is bizarre why there wouldn't be a mugshot. I mean, Epstein got a mugshot. He said several mugshots. Or like when CNN beat the FBI by 13 minutes to Roger Stone's house. You couldn't beat the FBI to Ghislaine Maxwell's house. You know, why is that? When that how Roger Stone thinks it's like another show entirely. But yeah, it's bizarre. I wish I could have an answer for you, Sam, because I've been trying to ask people too, and that was one of the key reasons why I was thinking, and many other people were like, she's not even in federal custody. But I can say that I saw her face with my own two eyes. And that's the thing too, is she looked very healthy. You know, you're seeing these reports in the weeks preceding the trial in the mainstream saying there's rats and her hair's falling out. And I think there was like the food, she's complaining about the food. And then her brother, Ian Maxwell, complained to the United Nations, which is just ridiculous given the fact that Julian Assange is still incarcerated at HMP Belmarsh in London. And you have Ian Maxwell complaining about his sister being locked up in New York under righteous charges. But even then, you know, it's like, why didn't she get any sex crime charges? Why didn't she get any sexual battery or sexual abuse charges? She's only gotten trafficking charges and conspiracy to traffic as well as conspiracy to traffic minors, which is bizarre as well, because you have multiple victims testifying independent of one another that Maxwell indeed participated in the sexual abuse as well. So that to me was quite bizarre. And Nick Bryan actually called this trial an abomination of justice when I talked to him yesterday. He was a guy that broke the Franklin scandal, Franklin Network, and pertains to this case, he was the man with the black book back in. I want to say he got it in 2012, and he sat on it for like 3 years before he released it. It was actually Gawker, which is like, you know, they're like the you know, they're kind of like the bad kids, or at least they were before they got taken down by Peter Thiel. And they're the ones publishing this because the black book, because nobody else will touch the information. It's just too explosive. But you know, you mentioned the show trial thing before, and I was on a podcast earlier this evening, and she basically brought up the question of if it is a show trial, then why even go through it with it at all? And my contention was the only reason this is happening is because of the court of public opinion. You know, you got a guy like Eric Weinstein, who's an intellectual giant in the modern day, and he's last summer being like, why can't we track this person down? You know, she's extremely wealthy. She wouldn't be that hard to track down. The FBI could track her down in 4 hours. I remember Nick said last year. And I think it was only the public demand that really resulted in Maxwell getting arrested in the first place back in July. And that was crazy too, because that week I actually interviewed a friend of hers, Laura Goldman, and like 2 days later she got arrested. I remember I flew back from Oregon to Wisconsin. I woke up and I looked at my phone. I was like, oh my goodness, she got arrested. I started streaming right away. And then the next Monday, her friend Laura Goldman was on Piers Morgan, and I was so bitter because Piers Morgan got like 500,000 views and I got like 38 or something like that. And I was like, I beat you to the punch, Piers, but you're the one getting all the views.
Dude, you wouldn't want to change. Wouldn't want to trade place with that sack of shit. Don't even worry about that. So, you know, and you may not have the answer to that. Why didn't Ghislaine Maxwell flee the country?
That's another great question. Why didn't she go to France or to Israel? I would have went to Israel if I were her. And that's another thing too, is where's Wexner at? You know, is he in Israel? You know, we don't even know if he's
I mean, they're shutting down Victoria's Secrets. I mean, which is so crazy to me that they're shutting it down because, you know, we're in this anti-business era. that's funded by BlackRock and Vanguard and all this Fed money, that any business ran by the elites get to stay open because they're getting monopoly money from the Fed. So why is this brand shutting down? Like, what is going on with that? And it's just to erase any connection to Epstein and the mega group and all that stuff. Do you think it's possible that she just had nowhere to run to? Like, after Epstein was got, that they were like, okay, dude, if we bring this chick here, it's going to bring nothing but heat on us, and emphasize this Mossad Zionist connection.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's probably one of the better points I've heard. And you know who actually predicted this correctly was Ryan Dawson. I want to give a huge shout out to Ryan Dawson.
He's the best. I got to get him back on the show.
He's the man. He's the man. He's been investigating this since like 13, 14 years ago. And, it's funny. I got recognized earlier this week by a listener of Ryan and myself. And she's like, I saw you on Ryan's show. And so it's like me, and then this she's not even a journalist. She just goes because she's interested. And she actually got fired for not, she's a teacher, got fired for not doing the jab. And we're like trying to educate people, the ones that'll listen to us, about all these connections, Maria Farmer's intelligence and the Mossad connections, intelligence connections. Because as I mentioned, a lot of these people, there's a guy from the Epoch Times. He was literally doing a story about like a cat cafe, and then they sent him to the Maxwell trial, just like threw him in the ocean. So it's like, I thought I was. I guess I was more knowledgeable than I realized than a lot of these people here, thanks to people like Ryan Dawson and Sean Atwood, who's also done fantastic work on this Epstein case. Yeah,
Whitney Webb's done a lot of great work as well. Like, she's like, she'll blackpill you like a motherfucker, dude. She ain't, and you're just like, oh man, is it that bad? But it really is. Like, yeah, Dawson broke down. He had that whole chart that got him basically wiped off of everything. The mega group, the Brofmans, all that. It's like, and you try to sit there, I one of my best friends is Brian Callen. I love him to death. We have a podcast together called Conspiracy Social Club. And like, he just thinks that, just bad luck that the Clintons were friends with so many pedophiles. And, the Brofmans going down, the Brofmans connections to the mega group's connection to Lex Wessner, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father, Robert Maxwell. I mean, it's insane, man. And I think what it is like, people are so afraid. Like, we really love status quo monsters. We love, like, it's real easy to believe that fucking Al-Qaeda are bad people. ISIS are bad people. It's real hard for us to believe that our taxpayers go to fund all that. We don't want to believe that Israel, our greatest ally ever, might have very nefarious intent to control this country through many different ways, to elicit military action through 9/11, and to control all of our politicians through blackmail. And a big problem people say with Alex Jones, and and I love Alex, and I kind of regret going on a show bringing up Israel all the time, because he is such a good guy and he's such a wonderful he's been nothing but a class act every time I hang out with him. And I know people have their thoughts about him, in particular when it comes to his quote unquote blind spot when it comes to Israel. Right. And I understand that, but he's so right about China and stuff like that, and what China's doing here, so it's like Zionism or communism or Zionist communism. I think people are really afraid. It's like very easy to get mad at acceptable monsters, and even China's becoming an acceptable monster. It's very easy to say that China is up to no good, but to take a look at like the role of our quote unquote our greatest ally ever, it's very hard for people, because all you hear about the Holocaust all the time, and this has all been done purposefully to get to, like, when you look up cultural Marxism, the first 4 lines, they can't say anti-Semitism enough, because they don't want you looking into it, which is, I think, a big reason why I have been getting kicked off all these things because I am, in fact, talking about real-time cultural Marxism and what it leads to. And Ghislaine Maxwell and all of her friends, Bill Gates, you know, who's like buddy with Epstein, had a quote unquote employee on his property get busted with just shit tons of kiddie porn, and we just all accepted that's from, you know, from his lawn maintenance guy, right? And not the fucking billionaire who wears sweaters everywhere he goes, regardless of what temperature it is, right? Those are the signs of shadiness to me. If you're wearing a sweater every day of the year and it's fucking 100 degrees out, what are you trying to hide, you shady fuck, right?
Yeah.
So
he's trying to go for the Mr. Rogers look.
Right. But it's like we see so much of this and what this trial involves. And I really don't think we're going to really get an understanding of how much it's in until the defense starts to go and what the defense is putting out. What is their game plan? Because right now it sounds as bad as it sounds like the prosecution's game plan, according to you, and I totally believe you. The defense game plan of connecting her to Trump and Clinton seems really stupid to me. And it sounds like it's sabotage, but that may not even matter at all. I mean, at a level this high.
Yeah, if the fix is in, the fix is in.
Can you control the jury? Whose jury says well?
Can you repeat that question, Sam?
Could they control who the jury is?
I see what you're asking. Yeah.
Can they control who's called in to be jury? And they can get rid of all these people, but you know, it's almost whack-a-mole at this point.
Yeah, that's the thing is these, you know, we're dealing with the people who basically run the world. They, you know, they make the laws, they enforce the laws when they want to, and when they don't want to, you know, going to the top of the banksters, celebrities, academia. And like you said, it was a blackmail operation to steal secrets from the United States, not just to control the politicians, which is, and that's another thing too, is it, you know, if you're in a senator, you shouldn't have dual citizenship with a country.
Couldn't agree more, bro. Couldn't agree more.
And yeah, you're right with the anti-Semitism tactic. And I think maybe an easier way to look at it is trying to look at it through the lens of power and not identity, and what is beneficial for achieving power for an influence or influence, regardless of what entity is trying to wield or secure that power. So, you know, a book like The 48 Laws of Power, I recommend people read by Robert Greene. It kind of helps people see the amorality or the colorlessness of power, right? And how humans behave when it comes to power, regardless of who they are or where they come from.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. And you know, for me, man, this I do think they are painting this as a bunch of teenage chicks. We're just hanging out with powerful dudes. And come on, man, we all know teenage chicks want it. I think that's kind of like what we're painting this as. Like these girls were just there for the fun and not that they were being trafficked. And I think people are really afraid to look at that pedophilia is the entrance, the initiation in the power. And these people, because it used to be way back in the day, if you cheat on your wife, they would use that against you. Then people like, who cares? And then it got to like, if you were gay, then it would be like, who cares? And now it's like, oh man, this guy diddles kids or does even more horrible shit to children. That seems to be what it is, you know. And here's an interesting thing. China just did it like a census, of their entire country, and they cannot account for 12 million children. They don't know where they went. They can't account for them. And
I was actually discussing that, you know, just like the organ harvesting topic earlier this evening off camera with a friend. And yeah, it's a problem in Mexico too. With the cartels, they'll do that too. It's pretty gross, but they'll basically apply people with drugs to make them relaxed, because I mean, they also cannibalize too. It's just really bizarre. But not to switch from China to Mexico, but just the organ trafficking sequitur there.
Well, I mean, like you want to get into it. Like I believe the Central Intelligence Agencies, all your intelligence agencies are just extensions of the Jesuits. The Jesuits were the original Central Intelligence, and they just branded themselves different. Every different country. Israel to me is the center of all the Holy Lands, but it's also Mesopotamia. But really, the big thing is it is a land bridge from Africa and Asia to Europe. So those who control that control a lot of commerce. And if you take a look at Israel, yes, it's very Jewish, but the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican, owns a giant chunk of Israel, like a big chunk. And if you look at where all the Nazis ran to, big part of Israel, the Nazis all ran to the Vatican after the fall. I don't believe the Nazis lost the World War II. I think Germany did. I thought the Nazis actually took over. That's my opinion. And if you take a look at who started the CIA, it was Allen Dulles. But all these Nazis came over, created a Central Intelligence Agency. So we know that has Nazi ties to it, and the Nazis have big ties to the Vatican. And if you take a look at all your organized crime organizations in North America, South America, and Europe, they're all Catholic based, right? The Italian mob, the Latino mobs, the Irish mob, the British mobs, these are all Catholic based. So they're playing both sides of the they're both law enforcement and organized crime, and they're keeping all the money. And that is what's being exposed right now is the power structure. And
exactly.
I think
the power structure.
I think Jews are middle management. I think they're used as a boogeyman, kind of along the way that trans are being used as the boogeyman to cover up for pedophilia, in my humble opinion. Trans agenda, you're like trans, there are like 12 of them. The real thing is the pedophiles at the high concentration, at the highest levels of all power in the world. Okay. And the same thing with Jews, man. They're like Jews. There's not a lot of Jews in the world, man. It's like but they're positioned in places so everyone thinks Jews. But if you study these people, really, they use Judaism, Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam as a mask to walk amongst us. Because when you really study them, even Epstein, you study them, it's all fucking dark arts, occult imagery. Moloch and all these guys, like that's the real power right there.
Yeah, he had a statue of Moloch. Did Epstein in one of his houses? I don't know if he had more of one. But you brought up made me think of a couple points there with regards to Israel. I don't know if you've heard of the bunting cloverleaf map, but it's got basically Jerusalem in the middle and then 3 leaves: Asia, Europe, and then Africa. So it kind of the idea of Jerusalem as the center of the world. And you mentioned the intelligence agencies as well. And, this begs the question of, remember when Acosta said, well, he's above my pay grade, he belongs to intelligence. Well, what intelligence would that be? And that's a debate people have too. Is it the CIA or is it the Mossad? But we know going back before World War II was even over, we were already collaborating with Nazi intelligence. Reinhard Gehlen, the Gehlen organization, and Klaus Barbie, torture specialist, butcher of Lyon, France. We paid and protected these monsters, and that was a huge kind of eye opener for me. A huge shift in my consciousness. I remember the day I learned that about Klaus Barbie. I was just so depressed, to learn that our government had did that. But my point is, like, the overlapping of the intelligence agencies pretty much was there from the start. You had the OSS, which became the CIA after the war. So similar to what you mentioned about cloaking or masking or kind of wearing capes, whether it's religion or nationalism. Another way to look at it is the banks using nationalism in countries as basically pawns on the chessboard, right? Where they don't care about country or religion or anything like that, right? It's again, it's about power.
It's going to be an interesting trial, man. It's going to be an interesting trial. And I'm super thankful that you're there and you're in your coverage. And again, his Twitter will be linked here into the bio, in the description of the episode. I really appreciate you coming on, Addy Ads. And again, one more time, tell them where they can find you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Sam Tripoli. I really appreciate it, man. Like I said, I've been, aware you work, watching you for a while now, and really an honor to have you invite me on your show, even before I had you on mine. And hopefully we can do that one day, maybe after the trial or something.
Brother. Let's
that'd be super fun. But yeah, Twitter is OneAddyAds, OneAddyAds. My website's addyads.one, addyads.one. If people want to check out all my other links, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App, in case people want to help sponsor me with lodging and food here while I'm in New York. Because I'm actually, as I mentioned, not from New York. I'm based in the Carolinas right now. So, again, appreciate it, man. Really do.
All right, brother. Thank you for joining me on such short notice. This has been an emergency podcast. I hope to see you guys in San Diego this weekend and then Tampa on the 10th. Come get weird with me, hang out. The 10th is my final show of 2021. It's been a great year. I love you all. Again, Addy, thanks for coming on. Thank you to the Swarm. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.